I was on a business trip for half a month. When I got home, I saw my daughter hiding in a corner wearing a hat. I lifted it off and saw that her long hair had been shaved clean, her scalp covered in red marks. The teacher had said lightly in the group chat, her hair was too long and affecting her intelligence. I shaved it for her own good. I laughed out of anger and replied, "Received." The next day, at the flag-raising ceremony, I rushed onto the stage carrying a professional electric razor. Amidst the screams of the entire school's teachers and students, I pressed the teacher down on the lectern. "Since a bald head makes you smart, then, teacher, you could be the first to become brilliantly smart." The door to the house pushed open, a familiar smell of dust. I put down my suitcase. No one was in the living room. Nuonuo didn't rush over like she used to. I called out, "Nuonuo, Dad's home." No one answered. I walked toward the bedroom. Her door was closed. I turned the doorknob. Nuonuo was sitting in the corner, hugging her knees, wearing a white baseball cap on her head. The hat was pulled down low, almost covering her entire face. "What's wrong?" I walked over and squatted down. She didn't speak, her body shrinking back. My heart skipped a beat. A bad feeling crept up on me. "Nuonuo, look at Dad." I reached out, wanted to take off her hat. She flinched away violently, her hands clamping down on the hat. "No, don't look." Her voice was trembling, tinged with sobs. My heart tightened. "Let Dad see. Are you hurt?" I softened my tone, my hand pausing in midair. She hesitated. A few seconds later, her trembling hands loosened slightly. Slowly, I took off her hat. My breath caught. Nuonuo's waist-length hair was gone. A shaved head. On her pale scalp were red marks, one after another, as if a rake had plowed through it. Some spots were even oozing traces of blood. The blood rushed my head. Something inside me exploded. I stared deadly at those wounds, grinding my teeth so hard they clicked. "Who did this?" My voice wouldn't come out. I squeezed the two words out of my throat. Large tears rolled down Nuonuo's cheeks. She didn't dare look at me, burying her head even lower. It was Teacher Wang. Bung Li, Nuonuo's homeroom teacher. I took out my phone, my hands shaking violently. I opened the parent-teacher group chat. The group was quiet. I scrolled up through the chat history. The date was yesterday afternoon. Wang Li's profile picture popped up. Below was a photo. In the photo, Nuonuo was sitting on a small stool, and Wang Li was holding a pair of electric clippers, pressing them against her scalp. The background of the photo was the classroom. Below the photo, Wang Li had sent a message. "Attention parents. Zhou Nuonuo's hair is too long and is seriously affecting her concentration in class and distracting her intelligence. Taking responsibility for my student, I helped her take care of her hair this afternoon. A new hairstyle for a new start. I hope Nuonuo can focus more on her studies and welcome a smarter version of herself." It was followed by a smiling emoji. A few parents in the group had liked it. There were also a few replies. "Thank you for your hard work, Teacher Wang." Teacher Wang is so responsible. I looked at that photo, at those words, at that glaring, smiling emoji. I laughed. I laughed out of pure rage. The fire in my chest burned so intensely my organs ached. I typed 2 words into the input box. "Sent." "Receive." Then, I turned off my phone and stood up. I gently stroked Nuonuo's shaved head. The red marks on her scalp pressed against my palm. "Nuonuo, don't be afraid," I said to her. "Dad will get justice for you." I walked out of the bedroom, grabbed my coat, and put on my shoes. I left. It was 8 o'clock at night. I needed a pair of clippers. A professional, powerful pair, the kind that could scrape a layer of skin off a person's skull. I walked down the street. The night wind couldn't extinguish the fire in my heart. I went into a 24-hour convenience store. They didn't have any. I then found a large department store. The electronics department was on the 3rd floor. I headed straight there. A sales associate approached me. "Sir, what can I help you with?" "Hair clippers." My voice was flat. The associate led me to a row of shelves. "For home use or professional? We have a few imported brands, powerful motors, good blades. I want the best one." I pointed to a box on the highest shelf. A German brand, silver metal casing. It looked heavy. "That one. Get it down for me." The associate brought a ladder and took the item down. I held it in my hand. It had a significant weight. I opened the box. Inside were 7 or 8 guide combs, a small brush, and a bottle of lubricant. The body of the clippers was all metal, cold to the touch. I pressed the switch. Vim, a low, Powerful vibration hummed from my palm. The sound wasn't loud, but it was full of power. How long does this take to charge? Charges for 1 hour. Lasts for 3. I'll take it. I took the box to the cashier. Swiped my card, signed my name. Throughout the whole process, I didn't say an extra word. I carried the clippers home. Nona was already asleep, but her sleep was restless. Her brow was furrowed, and tears still clung to the corners of her eyes. I tucked her in and sat by the bed. My phone lit up. I opened the school's official account. I scrolled through last week's notifications. Notice regarding the new semester opening ceremony and flag-raising ceremony. Time, Monday, 8:00 a.m. Location, the school's main sports ground. Attendees, all teachers and students. Host, Wang Li. Seeing Wang Li's name, a metallic taste filled my mouth. Very good. I put down my phone and took out the newly bought clippers. I plugged in the charger. The red indicator light came on, like an eye. I didn't sleep all night. I sat on the living room sofa, watching that red light. Dawn broke. The light turned green. I unplugged the charger and put the clippers into a black cloth bag. Then I walked into the kitchen and made myself breakfast. 2 eggs, a glass of milk. I needed my strength. After eating, I woke Nono up. Nono, we're not going to school today. She looked at me, her eyes filled with fear. Dad is going to solve the problem for you. I helped her get dressed and took her to the neighbor across the hall. Annie Zhang, the neighbor, was a retired doctor and a very kind person. I briefly explained the situation to her. Annie Zhang was so angry, she slapped her thigh. This teacher is simply a monster. You go on, don't worry. I'll watch Nono for you. I nodded and turned to go downstairs. I walked out of the residential complex. The sunlight was beautiful. I hailed a taxi to the city's #1 elementary school. The driver started the car. I watched the streetscape recede outside the window, my heart completely calm. It was the calm before storm. I opened the cloth bag and felt the cold clippers. Bang Li. I silently repeated the name in my mind. You like helping people become smart. Today, I'll let you experience it too. Brilliantly smart. The taxi stopped at the school gate. The time was 7:50. People were coming and going at the gate. Students in their uniforms, carrying backpacks, streamed into the school. I paid and got out. The security guard at the gate stopped me. Parent, it's school time. You can't go in now. I glanced at him. I'm looking for Teacher Wang Li. Teacher Wang is leading the morning reading. You'll have to wait. I ignored him and walked straight in. The guard tried to grab me, but was forced back by a single look. My gaze must have been terrifying. He didn't follow me. I walked onto the campus. The sports ground was already filled with students standing in neat formations. Marching music played for the loudspeakers. On the main stage, a few school leaders sat in a row. A woman in a red dress was holding a microphone. It was Wang Li. She had makeup on, a proper smile on her face. She looked very happy today. I walked along the edge of the sports ground and circled around to the side of the stage. There was a set of stairs there. 2 students wearing red armbands stood guard. They saw me and looked like they wanted to say something. I didn't give them a chance. I walked up the stairs, step by step. The sound of the music, the speeches, the chatter of the students, it all faded away. The only things left in my world were a buzzing in my ears and the violent beating of my heart. Wang Li was speaking. As a representative of the city's outstanding teachers, I am deeply honored. The essence of education is love and responsibility. We must care for every child, not just their grades, but also their growth. I heard this and laughed. Love and responsibility. I walked up behind her. She was still giving her passionate speech. We must use our love to guide them, to shape them, to help them become useful members of society. A round of applause rose from below the stage. This was it. I took a step forward and pulled the clippers from the cloth bag. I pressed the switch. Buzz. A low, powerful sound echoed across the entire sports ground. Everyone froze. Wang Li also stopped her speech and turned around, confused. She saw me. She saw the clippers in my hand. Her expression changed in an instant. Who are you? What are you doing? Her voice became shrill. I didn't answer. I grabbed her hair with one hand and slammed her head down on the lectern in front of her. The microphone and trophy on the lectern were knocked to the ground, making a piercing noise. The entire school, thousands of pairs of eyes, instantly focused on this spot. Screams erupted. Since being bald makes you smart, how about you go first and become brilliantly smart? Teacher. My voice, carried by the still-working microphone, spread across the entire sports ground. Ban listrulat frantically. Maniac! Let go of me. Security. Security. It was useless. My arm was like an iron clamp. The clippers pressed against the back of her head. A lock of dyed brown, curly hair instantly fell onto the lectern. Then a second, a third. Where the clippers passed, a strip of pale, bluish scalp was left behind. The exact same color as Nono's head. The clippers buzzed in my hand. Wang Li's hair fell like tattered scraps, scattering a thin layer over her expensive red dress. Her struggles, violent at first, slowly weakened. In their place came a desperate, suppressed wail. The students below had gone from initial shock to terror. Some of the younger children were already crying in fear. The teachers were in chaos. Several male teachers rushed onto the stage. The two security guards finally reacted, lunging at me from either side. My goal had been achieved. I released my grip. Wang Li crumpled like a heap of mud, sliding from the lectern to the floor. The top of her head was a complete mess. Half was meticulously styled brown curls, the other half was newly grown, uneven stubble. Tears and snot smeared her makeup-covered face, making her look like a clumsy clown. I didn't resist, allowing the two guards to twist my arms behind my back and hold me tight. I dropped the clippers. The device rolled to the edge of the stage, fell off, and landed on the plastic track, silent. A middle-aged man with glasses rushed in front of me. He was the principal. I had seen his picture on the school's bulletin board. Mr. Zhou, you were too impulsive. How could you do something like this at school? His voice trembled with anger and fear, his finger nearly poking my nose. I looked at him, my gaze calm. Impulsive? My voice wasn't loud, but it was clear enough for him to hear. You should go see my daughter's head. You should go look in the parents' group chat and see how your outstanding teacher is doing what's best for the students. The principal's face turned shades of green and white. He clearly didn't know the specifics of what had happened yet. We could talk about this. We can resolve it. What you're doing is illegal. I am resolving it, I said word by word, in a way she can understand. Just then, the sound of police sirens grew from a distance, sharply piercing the chaos on campus. 2 police cars stopped by the sports field. Several officers quickly moved through the crowd and ran onto the stage. Police! Nobody move! The lead officer scanned the area, his eyes finally landing on me. Did you injure her? I nodded. Yes. Seeing the police, Wang Li, who was collapsed on the ground, seemed to have found her saviors. She scrambled over and clung to an officer's leg. Officer, help! He's trying to kill me. He's a madman. Arrest him. Arrest him now. Her shriek was piercing, echoing across the entire sports field. The entire school, teachers and students, watched this scene. They watched this outstanding teacher, who had just been on stage lecturing about love and responsibility, now sitting on the ground like a shrew, with a half-shaved head, wailing and crying. I suddenly found it ridiculous. If you knew it would come to this, why did you do it in the first place? The officer pried Wang Li's hands off and motioned for his colleague to take her away and calm her down. Then, he walked over to me and took out his handcuffs. Zhou Cheng, right? You're suspected of intentional assault. Come with us. The cold handcuffs locked around my wrists. I didn't struggle. Escorted by 2 police officers, I walked down from the stage, through countless complicated stairs. There was fear, curiosity, and confusion. And in one corner, a young female teacher quietly gave me a thumbs up. I walked past her, my face expressionless. I knew that from this day on, City No, one elementary school would never be peaceful again. And I, Zhou Cheng, was the one who started this storm. I didn't care. As long as I could get justice for Nono, I was willing to pay any price. The light in the interrogation room was stark white, chilling one to the bone. I sat on a metal chair, facing 2 police officers. One was young, responsible for taking notes. The other was older, looked to be in his 40s with sharp eyes. He was the one who had cuffed me. Name: Zhou Cheng. Age: 35. Occupation: engineer. I travel for work year-round. The older officer pushed the notebook forward slightly, leaning his body forward. Zhou Cheng, do you know what you did today? Ido, I answered. I shaved the head of a person who hurt my daughter. My tone was calm, as if stating a trivial matter. The young officer looked up at me, a hint of surprise in his eyes. The older officer's expression didn't change. That's not called shaving a head. That's called intentional assault. In a public place, in front of over 1,000 teachers and students, you used violent means to physically assault and personally humiliate another person. The nature of this act is very serious. Serious? I repeated, and then I laughed. Officer, I like to ask, when a person, a teacher, in a classroom, in front of all her students, uses violent means to forcibly shave a 7-year-old girl's head, leaving scratches all over her scalp, what do you call that? Wouldn't you call that serious? I took my phone out of my pocket and placed it on the table. This is my phone. There's no password. In the photo album, there are pictures of my daughter from last night. In WeChat, there are the comments her teacher posted in the parents' group chat. You can take a look. The young officer picked up the phone and began to look through it. His expression slowly changed, from professional detachment at the beginning to surprise and then to anger. He passed the phone to the older officer. The older officer looked very carefully at the photos, the chat history, that glaring smiley face emoji. He looked at every single thing. The interrogation room fell silent. Only the sound of the air conditioner's vent could be heard. After a long time, the older officer put down the phone and looked up at me. His expression was much more complicated. Even if the teacher was in the wrong, you can't solve it this way. There are laws. There's the Education Bureau. You could have filed a complaint. You could have reported her. I file a complaint, and then what? I shot back. Wait for the Education Bureau to send someone to investigate. Wait for the school to hold meetings to discuss it. Wait for it to go through layer after layer of bureaucracy. A month? 2 months. By then, who's going to be responsible for the psychological trauma this has caused my daughter? She's being mocked by her classmates, treated like a freak. She's afraid to go outside, afraid to see people. Who is going to make up for that damage? What punishment will Wang Li receive? A public criticism? A written self-criticism? And then she'll just be moved to another class and continue to be an outstanding teacher? I stared into his eyes. Officer, some wounds can't wait to be healed. Some justice must be served immediately. I haven't read many books, but I know one principle. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I will make her suffer 10 times, 100 times, the pain she caused my daughter. I wanted her to experience, in front of the entire school, the same despair my daughter felt last night. I wanted everyone to see the consequences of hurting others under the guise of it's for your own good. My words left both officers speechless. Just then, the door to the interrogation room was thrown open. A man in a suit rushed in, with Wang Li following behind him. Wang Li had changed her clothes and had a hat haphazardly placed on her head, hiding her ridiculous haircut. The moment she entered, she pointed at me and shrieked. That's him. Officers, why are you being so polite to him? He's a violent maniac, a lunatic. I'm going to sue him. I want him to go to jail. Make him pay for my emotional distress. 1 million. No, 5 million. The man beside her, who must have been her husband, had a brutish face and pointed at me, cursing. Who the fuck do you think you are, touching my wife? I'm telling you, this isn't over. I know people. I'll make you rot in jail for the rest of your life. The older officer slammed his hand on the table. Both of you get out. This is a police station, not your personal marketplace. He had a commanding presence, and Wang Li and her husband were stunned into silence. We will handle Zhou Cheng according to the law. What you need to do now is go give your statements. If you continue to cause a disturbance and obstruct official duties, we'll detain you both. The two were pushed and coaxed out of the room by a young officer. The interrogation room became quiet again. The older officer looked at me and sighed. You see, this has gotten complicated. I nodded. I know. Do you regret it? I shook my head and smiled faintly. No regrets. My only regret is that I came home too late yesterday. I was temporarily detained. I was kept in a small room with a bed and a toilet. I didn't know what was happening outside, but I could guess. At that very moment, the parents' group chat with its 300-plus members must have been exploding, and that was indeed the case. The moment I rushed onto the stage, a parent had secretly recorded a video. Although it was only a dozen seconds long and the footage was shaky, it was clear enough to see everything. a man pinning down a woman, holding a buzzing pair of clippers in his hand. The background was the school stage and the dense crowd of students below. The video was posted in the group chat and instantly blew up. Oh my God, is that Zhou Nuonyuo's dad? What is he? Is he crazy? Attacking someone at school? And in front of so many kids? Attacking? This is clearly justice being served. Didn't you see what Wang Li did to Nuonyuo yesterday? She deserved it. Exactly. This is how you deal with teachers like her. Nuonyuo's dad is a hero. The group was instantly split into two factions. One faction, led by a few parents who usually enjoyed sucking up to Wang Li, crazily condemned my violent behavior. Violence doesn't solve any problems. This is teaching children to fight violence with violence. This kind of parent is terrifying. He must be severely punished. We need an explanation for all the children. The other faction consisted of parents whose children had been bullied by Wang Li, openly or secretly, and who had been angry but dared not speak out. Terrifying? Why didn't you say it was terrifying when Wang Li was publicly humiliating children? Now that someone has stood up, you're the ones jumping out. An explanation? I think the ones who owe an explanation are Wang Li and the school. Father Zhou just did what many of us wanted to do, but didn't dare to. The two factions argued endlessly. More parents chose to remain silent, lurking and watching the screen, not daring to pick a side. At that moment, Principal Zhang Jingguo was in his office, at his wit's end. Calls from the Education Bureau came one after another, their tone severe, demanding that he quell the situation immediately and submit a report. The school's switchboard was nearly overwhelmed by calls from furious parents. Reporters, having caught wind of the news, were blocking the school gate, eager to dig up a first-hand story. In his decades-long career, Zhang Jingguo had never encountered such a difficult crisis. Deal with me? I was a madman who assaulted someone. Deal with Wang Li? She was a municipal-level, outstanding teacher with a significant background. Protect the school's reputation? The school's reputation was already a joke. He thought about smoothing things over. He wanted to call my wife, have her persuade me, pressure me to apologize proactively, and frame the incident as an impulsive personal act, then appease Wang Li's side. However, before he could even dial the number, my wife, Liu, had already shown up at his door. Liu worked at a design institute in the city and had an important project proposal to present today. She had received Annie Zhang's call during the meeting. On the phone, Annie Zhang was incoherent, only managing to say that something had happened to me and that I had been taken away by the police. Liu's soul nearly left her body. Forgetting the meeting, she asked her boss for leave and rushed out. She first ran to the school and saw the chaos at the gate. After asking around, she found out what I had done. In that moment, she was shocked, furious, and terrified. Shocked that I would actually dare to do such a thing. Furious at my impulsiveness and extremism. Terrified of the severe consequences this incident might bring. She raced to the police station like a madwoman. In the hallway, she saw me. I was being escorted by the police, moving from one room to another. Through a small glass window, our eyes met. My face was emotionless, but my eyes were filled with exhaustion. Liu's eyes instantly turned red. She rushed over, trying to grab me, but was stopped by the police. Zhou Cheng, are you crazy? Do you have any idea what you've done? Her voice was choked with sobs, her fists pounding on the door. What about Nuonyuo? What about our family? Why couldn't you think about the consequences? I stopped and looked back at her. I opened my mouth, wanting to say something, but in the end, it all turned into a sigh. I'm sorry, I said to her, but I had to do this. With that, I turned my head away, no longer looking at her, and followed the police behind the cold, iron door. In the hallway, only Liu's irrepressible sobs remained. The hallway of the police station was cold and long. Liu leaned against the wall, her body slowly sliding down until she was squatting on the floor. Zhou Cheng's "I'm sorry" and "I had to do this" were like two needles, piercing her heart. She covered her face, tears seeping through her fingers. Her cries were suppressed, desperate. She wasn't afraid of trouble, nor of poverty. She was only afraid of this family falling apart. Zhou Cheng was an engineer and looked gentle, but deep down, he had a stubborn streak. She knew that from the moment he saw the wound on Nuonyuo's head, there was no turning back. But still, she was afraid. afraid of what would happen to Nuonuo, afraid that Zhou Cheng would actually go to jail, afraid that their family would just collapse like this. The sound of footsteps stopped in front of her. She looked up and saw a pair of shiny leather shoes. It was the older police officer. He handed her a bottle of water. Have some water? Crying won't solve anything. Liu didn't take it, just stared at him with her red, swollen eyes. My husband. What will happen to him? The older officer squatted down beside her and sighed. He won't escape a charge of intentional injury. There were thousands of witnesses at the scene, and he himself has confessed to everything. Right now, it all depends on the injury assessment results and the other party's attitude. If they refuse to forgive him and insist on pressing charges, given the malicious nature of the act, it's highly likely he'll be sentenced to prison. Prison. Those two words struck Liu's heart like a heavy hammer. Her body swayed, and she nearly fell. The officer helped steady her. But he changed the subject. Everything has a cause and effect. Although your husband's methods were extreme, there was a reason for it. We will also intervene and investigate Wang Li's behavior. If it is verified that she did in fact engage in corporal punishment and abuse of students, she won't be able to escape responsibility. The evidence you provide is very important, and we will verify it. In court, this will be a significant factor in sentencing. He looked at Liu. This is not the time for you to cry. Your husband is holding on inside, so you have to shoulder the responsibility outside. Find a good lawyer, prepare the evidence, and fight this battle well for your husband and for your daughter. These words were like a shot of adrenaline. Liu's gaze slowly changed. That's right. Zhou Cheng was holding on inside. She couldn't fall. She wiped her tears, stood up, took the bottle of water, twisted it open, and took a large gulp. The cold water cleared her chaotic mind somewhat. Thank you, comrade officer. I understand. She walked out of the police station, the sunlight piercing. She didn't go home, but instead took out her phone and found a number. Hello, senior brother, it's me, Liu. I need your help. I need the best criminal lawyer in all of Haicheng. After the call, she took a deep breath and opened the parent group chat that made her heart clench. The group was already in an uproar. Accusations, defenses, and onlookers' comments were all intertwined. Wang Li's husband was also in the group, his words fierce, constantly insulting Zhou Cheng, saying he would make him lose his fortune and rot in jail. Liu looked at the filthy language, her knuckles turning white. She didn't argue with anyone. She just turned on her camera and recorded a video of herself. In the video, her face was pale, her eyes red and swollen, but her gaze was unusually firm. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhou Nuonuo's mother, Liu. My husband, Zhou Cheng, has been detained because of what happened at school this morning. Right now, I am right outside the police station. She turned the camera to the police station gate behind her. I don't want to discuss whether my husband's actions were right or wrong. The law will give him a fair judgment. I just want everyone to see this. She pulled up last night's photo of Nuonuo from her phone's album. The bald head, covered in red marks and blood streaks, appeared clearly on the screen. This is my 7-year-old daughter, Zhou Nuonuo. Last night, when my husband returned from a business trip, this is what he saw. And her teacher, Wang Li, said in the group that this was for her own good, that would make her smarter. Liu's voice began to tremble, but she forced herself to hold it back. I just want to ask all the parents in this group, if this were your daughter, what would you do? If your child was hurt like this, humiliated like this, could you still calmly go through the procedures and wait for a notice of criticism that might never come? My husband did something wrong, and he will bear the consequences. But the person who hurt my daughter must also pay the price. From now on, I will do whatever it takes to get justice for my daughter. For all the unjust things teacher Wang Li has done to the children, please tell me. I, Liu, bow to you all here. After speaking, she faced the camera and bowed deeply. The video was sent. The entire parent group fell instantly silent. Liu met the lawyer introduced by her senior brother in a coffee shop. The lawyer's surname was Chun, in his 30s, wearing a pair of gold-rimmed glasses, with a calm gaze and a steady demeanor. He skipped the pleasantries and went straight to the point. Ms. Li, I have a basic understanding of the situation. Legally speaking, Mr. Zhou's actions constitute the crime of intentional injury. This is a fact we cannot deny. Liu's heart sank. Then, the worst-case scenario would be less than 3 years of fixed-term imprisonment, criminal detention, or public surveillance? Lawyer Chen answered calmly. The key lies in 2 points. First, the result of Wang Li's injury assessment. If it is identified as a minor injury of the 2nd degree or higher, it meets the standard for a criminal case, and public prosecution will be unavoidable. Second, whether the other party issues a letter of understanding. If they insist on not forgiving, the judge will consider a heavier sentence. He looked at the pale Li Yu and continued, "However, we are not without a chance. The core of this case is not what Mr. Zhou did, but why he did it." He pushed a piece of paper in front of Li Yu. "Our defense strategy will revolve around provocation and conspicuously minor circumstances. Wang Li's violent act of shaving her daughter's head was a serious preceding fault and the direct cause of the incident's escalation. This is our most important bargaining chip." "What do we need to do?" Li Yu asked immediately. "Evidence." Lawyer Chen's finger tapped on the table. "We need a massive amount of irrefutable evidence to prove 2 things. First, prove that Wang Li's actions caused substantial physical and psychological harm to your daughter. You need to take your child to a proper hospital immediately for a detailed examination of her injuries and find an authoritative child psychologist for a psychological trauma assessment. These 2 reports are the most powerful evidence in the eyes of the law. Second, prove that Wang Li's actions were not an isolated incident, that she has a long-standing, consistent pattern of abusing her authority and using corporal punishment on students. The video you sent in the parent group chat is a good start. Now, you need to contact the parents of other children she has harmed and get their witness testimonies, even physical evidence. The more, the better. We need to show the court and the public that Wang Li is not an innocent victim, but a long-term abuser disguised as a teacher." Lawyer Chen spoke quickly, his logic clear, giving Li Yu's chaotic mind a sliver of direction. "I understand. One more thing," Lawyer Chen added. "Wang Li's husband is named Zhao Hong. He's a contractor in the building materials business with a rather complex social network. The fact that they've already threatened to have your husband jailed shows they won't give up easily. Next, they will likely use the media and public opinion to slander you. You need to be mentally prepared." Just as Lawyer Chen's voice fell, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, frowned, and handed the phone to Li Yu. It was a push notification from a local news account. The headline was blatant, shocking. "Man storms campus and violently assaults female teacher after argument over homework." The article's content glossed over the important details, vaguely describing the cause of the incident as an argument with the teacher over the child's academic problems, and then used a large amount of space to sensationalize the violence and horror of Zhou Cheng's actions. It described how teacher Wang Li was conscientious, dedicated, and deeply loved by her students, yet tragically suffered an unprovoked disaster, causing her immense physical and psychological trauma. Below the article were a few photos taken from tricky angles. One was a back view of Zhou Cheng being escorted by the police, making him look extremely vicious. Another showed Wang Li lying in a hospital bed on a 4-drip, her face pale and haggard, with her husband Zhao Hong holding her hand in grief beside her. The comment section was already flooded with netizens who didn't know the truth. "This is terrifying. This kind of person must be severely punished. Are all parents this crazy nowadays? I support the teacher. Whatever the reason, hitting someone is wrong, and in front of a child." The tide of public opinion, under the other party's manipulation, had already begun to turn. Zhao Hong's counterattack came faster and was more insidious than imagined. Li Yu trembled with anger as she read the black and white reversing report. How can they be so shameless? "Calm down." Lawyer Chen took back his phone, his expression still composed. "The media war has begun. Anger is useless. What we need to do is fight back with facts." He looked into Li Yu's eyes. "Ms. Li, from now on, you're not just a wife and a mother. You are a warrior. Are you ready?" Li Yu took a deep breath, forcing the tears back from her eyes, her gaze becoming incredibly hard. "I'm ready." Li Yu's first step was to take Nuonyuo to the hospital, the municipal children's hospital. The dermatologist gasped when he saw the wound on Nuonyuo's head. "How did this happen? What kind of tool was used?" "This is barbaric," the doctor said angrily while carefully disinfecting the wound with a cotton swab. After a detailed examination, the diagnosis report came out quickly. Multiple contusions and scratches on the scalp, accompanied by localized folliculitis. The doctor wrote caused by external violence on the medical record and stamped it. This medical record was irrefutable evidence. After leaving the dermatology department, Liu took Noonyuo to the psychological counseling center. A gentle female doctor surnamed Liu received them. The counseling room was warmly decorated, with a soft sofa and cute dolls. Noonyuo had been silent since entering the hospital, her small body constantly tense. Dr. Liu didn't rush to ask questions, but instead took out a drawing board and a box of colored pencils. Hello, Noonyuo. I'm Dr. Liu. Do you like to draw? Could you draw a picture for me? Noonyuo looked at Liu, who nodded encouragingly. She took the colored pencils, lay on a small table, and began to draw. Liu and Dr. Liu watched quietly from the side. Noonyuo drew for a long time. On the paper, a little girl appeared, without hair, standing alone in a corner. Around her, she drew many, many mouths. Every mouth was wide open, revealing sharp teeth. The little girl was crying. Seeing this drawing, Liu's heart felt as if it were being cut by a knife. Dr. Liu put the drawing away, then knelt down and asked Noonyuo in the gentlest voice. Noonyuo, can you tell Annie what happened in the classroom that day? Noonyuo bit her lip and said nothing. Did Teacher Wang say something that made you unhappy? Dr. Liu gently prompted. Tears began to well up in Noonyuo's eyes. She nodded. She said my hair was like long grass, that it would suck up all the nutrients and make me stupid. She said she was going to help me get rid of the weeds so everyone could see if I looked smarter without hair. Noonyuo's voice grew smaller and smaller, laced with a sob. She held me down in the chair, and a lot of the students were laughing. Zhang Xiaoping said I looked like a hard-boiled egg. Teacher Wang laughed too. She said, now you'll be smart, the smartest in the class. Liu can no longer hold back. She covered her mouth and began to weep silently. So, it wasn't just about shaving her head. There were also verbal insults, the ridicule of her classmates, and a public shaming led by the teacher. This wasn't education. This was abuse. Dr. Liu gently patted Noonyuo's back and held her in her arms. It's all right now, Noonyuo. It's all in the past. You didn't do anything wrong. The one who hurt you is the one who's wrong. You are a brave and good child. It was already dark when they left the hospital. Noonyuo had fallen asleep in Liu's arms, tear stains still visible on her small face. Liu held her daughter and walked home, her steps unusually heavy. Her phone vibrated. It was a message from Lawyer Chun. Ms. Li, the other party's injury report is out. It's a minor injury. Seeing these words, a great weight lifted from Liu's heart. A minor injury meant the case would most likely not go to public prosecution and could be resolved through civil mediation or administrative punishment. There was hope for Zhou Cheng to be released. But before she could feel relieved, Lawyer Chen's second message arrived. However, they have refused mediation and have filed a private criminal prosecution against you, demanding $1 million in compensation for emotional distress. They want your husband to go to jail. Liu's steps halted. She looked at her sleeping daughter in her arms, then at the message on her phone. The night wind blew, bringing a chill. She knew there was no turning back in this fight. Just then, an unfamiliar number called. Liu hesitated for a moment before answering. Hello, is this Zhou Noonyuo's mother? A cautious female voice asked from the other end. This is she. May I ask who you are? I saw your video in the group chat. I wanted to say, Wang Li also cut my Dodo's skirt with scissors last year, saying he was dressed too flamboyantly and didn't look like a boy. The woman's voice on the other end trembled with a hint of anger. And it's not just my son. Several other children have been bullied by her. We all put up with it before, but today, we can't put up with it anymore. If you need us, we are willing to stand up and testify for you. This phone call was like a beam of light piercing through Liu's cold, dark night. She knew she was not fighting alone. That unfamiliar phone call was like a lighthouse lit for Liu on the dark sea. Her heart beat fast, not with fear, but with excitement. Dodo's mom, thank you. Thank you for being willing to believe me. Liu's voice trembled slightly. We should be the ones thanking you. The woman on the other end sighed. Wang Li has been lording it over the class for more than a day or two. We were all afraid of her, afraid she would make things difficult for our children, afraid of retaliation from her husband. Zhao Hong. Although your husband was impulsive, he tore off this fig leaf. If we continue to be cowards, we are not worthy of being parents. These words instantly brought tears to Li Yu's eyes. It turned out she was not alone on this path. Are you available? I'd like to meet with you, Li Yu said immediately. Yes, we've been wanting to find you. Let's create a small group chat. I'll add a few parents I trust, and we could set a place to meet. Dodo's mother's tone became decisive. Soon, a small group of just 7 people was created. Besides Li Yu and Dodo's mother, there were 5 other parents. They agreed to meet at a community center far from the school. When Li Yu arrived, the other 6 were already there. They sat around a round table, each with a similar expression of suppressed anger and worry. Seeing Li Yu, everyone stood up. Nuonua's mom, Dodo's mother, a plain-looking woman, came forward to greet her. Li Yu bowed deeply to them. Thank you all for being willing to stand up. Please sit down. Don't say that. A man with glasses helped her up. We are all doing this for our children. Li Yu sat down. Without any unnecessary words, she placed a folder directly on the table. She opened the folder. Inside were photos of Nuonuo's scalp wound, a diagnostic report from the hospital, a psychological evaluation from a therapist, and a drawing Nuonuo had made. This is what my daughter, Zhou Nuonuo, has endured. When a photograph of the scalp covered in red marks and the drawing filled with sharp-toothed mouths appeared before everyone, a collective gasp echoed through the conference room. A young mother's eyes reddened on the spot. Beast! Wang Li is simply a beast. This isn't corporal punishment anymore. This is abuse. Li Yu's evidence, like a flame, completely ignited the anger in everyone's hearts. The silence was broken. Once the floodgates of accusations were opened, they could never be closed again. Last winter, Wang Li cut up my son's brand-new down jacket, a slightly overweight man said, his face red with anger. Just because there was a small cartoon pattern on it, she said it was a bad influence on the school's atmosphere. That jacket cost over 800 yuan. I went to confront her, and she actually claimed my son had accidentally torn it himself, and then she criticized him for lying in front of the whole class. My daughter, just for raising her hand to answer a question in class a little too quietly, was forced to stand at the back of the classroom for a whole day. No food, no bathroom breaks, a frail woman said, beginning to cry as she spoke. She came home with a high fever. I asked her why, but she wouldn't say a thing. It was her desk mate who told me later. Me too. I packed cherries for my child's fruit snack. Wang Li saw them, dumped them in the trash can in front of the whole class, and said our family was deliberately showing off our wealth and corrupting the class's morale. She also accepts gifts. She would openly and secretly hint for us to give her gift cards. Whoever gave one, their child would get to sit in the front row. Whoever didn't, their child was placed next to the trash can. Case after case, incident after incident. These were the tearful stories of suffering that these parents had swallowed in silence, so their children could get by safely. But the tolerance they thought they were showing was only met with Wang Li's escalating cruelty. Li listened quietly, recording every person's accusation on her phone. She looked at these parents before her, who were as angry and helpless as she was, and said, word by word, "We can't endure this any longer. Every time we give in, we are condoning evil. We are pushing our own children into a pit of fire." She stood up. "I need your help. I need you to write down these experiences as formal statements and sign them. I need you to keep all your chat logs and transfer records with Wang Li. I need you, when the time comes, to stand up with me and completely remove this cancer, Wang Li, from the ranks of educators." No one hesitated. "We'll write them. I have a recording of her yelling at my son from last year. Count me in. If worst comes to worst, we'll leave the school and transfer. We can't let our children suffer this kind of injustice anymore." In that moment, the 7 families twisted together like a single rope. They were no longer isolated individuals. They were an alliance, an Avengers League seeking justice for their children. Li Yu looked at the new stacks of evidence collected on the table and at the allies by her side, united by a common enemy. She knew the bugle for the counterattack had been sounded. "Zhao Hong, Wang Li, your retribution is coming." Zhao Hong was in a great mood. He was sitting in a private room at a high-end club, drinking and toasting with a few business friends. The news report slandering Zhou Cheng was something he had paid someone to publish, and its effect was surprisingly good. Now, online, most people believe Zhou Cheng was a hot-tempered violent maniac, while his wife, Wang Li, was a pitiful victim. As for the private criminal prosecution and the 1 million yuan compensation claim, that was a masterpiece he was particularly proud of. He wanted to let Zhou Cheng and Li Yu know exactly what the consequences were for offending him. Zhao Hong. Not only did he want to send Zhou Cheng to prison, but he also wanted to leave them bankrupt. Brother Hong, that was beautifully done. A man with a beer belly raised his glass. That's how you deal with a poor, troublesome nobody. Make him pay, send him to jail, and see if he still dares to be arrogant. Zhao Hong laughed heartily and smugly down a glass of wine. A stinking wage earner dares to fight me? Crushing him would be as easy as squashing an ant. He had it all planned out. Once he got the 1 million yuan compensation, he would throw a victory party, invite all his friends to celebrate, and show everyone that his woman, Zhao Hong's woman, was not to be messed with. Just then his phone rang. It was a call from an informant he had placed at the school. Hello, what is it? Zhao Hong's tone was impatient. Brother Hong, bad news. The voice on the other end of the phone was anxious. Zhou Cheng's wife, that Li Yu, she's organized several of the parents. They had a secret meeting this afternoon. It seems like they're collecting dirt on teacher Wang. The smile on Zhao Hong's face froze instantly. What did you say? How many of them? Seems like 6 or 7. Dodo's mom, Ding Ding's dad, they were all there. Zhao Hong's face turned ashen. Of course, he knew these people. They were the type of parents from the class who didn't stir up trouble and were a bit hard up. He never expected that this group, who usually seemed so timid, would actually dare to get mixed up with Li Yu. Damn it, they're rebelling, he roared, slamming his wine glass onto the floor with a piercing crash. The private room fell silent in an instant. Everyone stared at him. Brother Hong, what's wrong? A bunch of fools who don't know what's good for them. They think they can turn the world upside down. Zhao Hong's eyes were vicious as he paced back and forth in the room. He knew that if he let this group leak their so-called evidence, the tide of public opinion would likely turn, which would be very disadvantageous for both him and Wang Li. This bud had to be nipped before it could blossom. His gaze fell on a beefy man with arms covered in tattoos. Lao Biao, do something for me. Lao Biao immediately stood up. Just give the word, Brother Hong. Dodo's family, don't they run a small noodle shop? Zhao Hong asked coldly. Yeah, it's in the southern part of the city. I know the place. Go pay them a visit. A cruel smile played on Zhao Hong's lips. Don't get physical. We're civilized people. Just go have a bowl of noodles, chat with them about hygiene issues, fire safety issues. Remind them their kid is still young, needs to be careful when walking, shouldn't trip and fall. Lao Biao understood perfectly and grinned. Got it, Brother Hong. I'll take the boys to try their noodles right now. That evening, Dodo's family's noodle shop was preparing to close when several unlicensed vans pulled up at the entrance. A dozen thuggish-looking young men got out, led by Lao Biao. They swaggered into the shop and occupied all the tables. Boss, bring a dozen bowls of noodles, extra meat. Lao Biao shouted, planting one foot on a stool and slamming his hand on the table. Dodo's parents, pale with fear, trembled as they went to the kitchen to cook the noodles. When the noodles were served, the group ate like slobs, splashing soup and water all over the floor. After eating, Lao Biao sauntered over to Dodo's father and patted his cheek. Boss, this place of yours is no good. The back kitchen looks filthy. What if someone gets food poisoning? And this wiring is seriously old. If the fire department comes to inspect, do you think you'll be able to stay open? Dodo's father was trembling so hard he couldn't speak. And another thing, Lao Biao leaned in close to his ear, his voice low. I hear your kid also goes to first primary? Same class as that Zhou Nonyuo. Things aren't too peaceful at school lately. As a parent, you need to be smart. Don't get involved in things you shouldn't. The kid's still young. It'd be a shame if they got bumped or bruised at school. A naked threat. Having said his piece, Lao Biao left with his men without paying a cent. Dodo's mother burst into tears on the spot, collapsing to the floor. With trembling hands, Dodo's father took out his phone and dialed Li Yu. Nuonyuo's mom. I am sorry. We can't help you anymore. They came for us. On the other end of the line was a man's desperate voice, choked with sobs. Li Yu was organizing the evidence she had collected during the day. When she received the call, her heart sank. Zhao Hong's retaliation had come, more direct than she had imagined. After hanging up, Liu wasn't afraid. An unprecedented rage burned up from the bottom of her heart. She immediately dialed Lawyer Chun. Lawyer Chun, they've made their move. They've threatened the other parents. Lawyer Chun was silent for a few seconds on the other end. I understand. Ms. Li, this is actually good news. Good news. Li was confused. Yes. Lawyer Chin's voice was calm and firm. The more they do this, the more it proves they have a guilty conscience. The more they resort to underhanded tactics, the more it shows we're on the right path. Now, it's our turn to take the offensive. What Lawyer Chun called taking the offensive had a very clear target: the school. In his view, Zhao Hong and Wang Li were the enemy, but the city's first primary school and its principal, Zhang Jingguo, were the most crucial and vulnerable battlefield in this war. Zhao Hong had money and connections. He could play dirty, but the school was an educational institution, and what it feared most were scandals and public opinion. Zhao Hong threatening parents is illegal, but it's difficult to gather evidence and hard to land a fatal blow. But we can use this incident to pressure the school. On the phone, Lawyer Chun was laying out the detailed plan for Liu. What you need to do now is not to go head-to-head with Zhao Hong, but to take all the evidence and see the principal, Zhang Jingguo. We need to make him understand that protecting Wang Li is the biggest risk for him and the school. The next morning, Liu, along with Lawyer Chun and two of the more courageous parent representatives, went directly to the principal's office at the city's No. 1 primary school. To prevent Zhang Jingguo from avoiding them, Lawyer Chun had made anonymous calls half an hour earlier to several of the city's most influential media outlets and the Education Bureau office. The message was simple: parents from a No. 1 primary school haircut gate incident are currently in negotiations with the school's leadership. At this moment, Zhang Jingguo was sitting in his office, completely overwhelmed. For the past few days, he hadn't been eating or sleeping well, and several more of his hairs had turned white. On one side, Wang Li's husband, Zhao Hong, called daily to pressure him, demanding that the school publicly condemn Zhou Cheng and seek justice for Wang Li. On the other side, his superiors at the Education Bureau were constantly on his back, telling him to resolve the situation and eliminate the negative impact as soon as possible. Just as he was worrying about how to smooth things over, his secretary rushed in, flustered, to announce that Zhou Cheng's wife, Liu, had arrived with a lawyer and parent representatives, asking for him by name. Zhang Jingguo's subconscious reaction was to refuse. But before he could speak, the phone on his desk rang. It was the deputy director from the Education Bureau who supervised him. Comrade Jingguo, I heard the students' parents have come to the school to see you. Pay attention to your methods, handle it properly, and soothe their emotions. Whatever you do, you cannot let the situation escalate. The moment the deputy director hung up, another call came in from a media outlet. Zhang Jingguo understood. Today, he had to see them whether he wanted to or not. He wiped the sweat from his forehead, took a deep breath, and said to his secretary, "Let them in." Liu and Lawyer Chun walked into the office. Zhang Jingguo forced a stiff smile. Nua's mother, Lawyer Chun, please have a seat. Whatever it is, we can discuss it slowly. The school also expresses its deepest sympathy and regret for what Nua has gone through. Principal Zhang, we're not here today to listen to your bureaucratic platitudes. Liu cut him off directly, her eyes icy and devoid of warmth. She slammed a thick folder onto Zhang Jingguo's desk with a loud thwack. The documents inside scattered across the table. Nua's injury photos, the hospital's diagnosis, the psychological evaluation report, and more than a dozen heart-wrenching testimonies from other parents, all signed and marked with red fingerprints. Take a look at these first. Zhang Jingguo's gaze swept over the documents. His hands began to tremble slightly, especially when he saw the written statements from different children about their different experiences. He realized this was no longer a personal conflict between Wang Li and Zhou Cheng's family. This was a powder keg that could blow up the entire school at any moment. The school was truly unaware of these situations before. Teacher Wang Li is a city-level outstanding teacher, we thought. Outstanding teacher, Li was not. A teacher who cuts students' clothes with scissors, throws their fruit in the trash, makes them stand for a whole day without food, openly solicits gifts, and leads others in insulting students. This is the outstanding teacher selected by your school? Principal Zhang, is this your dereliction of duty, or does your one primary school just have a uniquely peculiar standard for outstanding? Liu pressed him relentlessly, her words sharp, leaving Zhang Jingguo defenseless. Lawyer Chun stepped forward at the opportune moment to press the advantage from a legal standpoint. Principal Zhang, according to the law on the protection of minors and the teacher's law, Wang Li's actions are suspected of being a serious violation of professional ethics and even constitute student abuse. As the employer and management body, the one primary school bears an inescapable supervisory responsibility. If this evidence is exposed now, not only will Wang Li's teaching license be in jeopardy, but the school's reputation and your personal career will likely be severely affected. He paused, glancing out the window. As far as I know, there are already reporters from several media outlets waiting downstairs. Whether we choose to resolve this peacefully, right here, or let this become tomorrow's front-page headline, the decision is yours. A threat, an undisguised threat. In an instant, Zhang Zhengguo's back was drenched in cold sweat. He knew he had no way out. Faced with the school's reputation and his own future, one Wang Li, one Zhao Hong, became insignificant. With a trembling hand, he picked up the phone on his desk and dialed the internal line for the school's dean's office. Hello, is this the dean's office? Issue a notice immediately. Effective today, suspend all duties of teacher Wang Li. Form a special investigation team to conduct a comprehensive investigation into the recent issues raised online and by the parents. Before the investigation results are out, Wang Li is not allowed to enter the campus. Hanging up the phone, Zhang Jingguo felt as if all his strength had been drained, and he collapsed into his chair. He looked at Liu, his voice hoarse. Ms. Li, are you satisfied with this arrangement? Liu looked at the principal, who 1 second wanted to smooth things over and the next had decisively cut ties. There was no joy of victory in her heart, only a cold sorrow. She knew this was just the first step. The real tough battle was yet to come. Zhao Hong was at a dinner party when he received the call. It was Principal Zhang Jingguo himself, his voice sounding tired and distant. Mr. Zhao, I need to tell you something. After a discussion and decision by the school's party committee, starting today, teacher Wang Li's duties are all suspended to cooperate with the investigation team. The smile on Zhao Hong's face hadn't faded yet, and the wine glass in his hand almost shattered. Zhang Jingguo, what do you mean? Investigation? Investigating what? My wife is the victim. Your school doesn't protect its own teacher, but instead investigates her. This is a requirement from the higher-ups, and also to respond to the concerns of the general parent body. Zhang Jingguo replied in a businesslike tone. The school's announcement has already been posted. That's all. With that, he hung up. Listening to the dial tone, Zhao Hong's face turned from red to green, and finally to a dark, iron-like black. He smashed the phone against the wall, shattering it into pieces. The atmosphere at the dinner table instantly dropped to freezing point. Damn it, that old fox Zhang Jingguo. How dare he kick me to the curb after I've served my purpose? Zhao Hong kicked over a nearby chair, his chest heaving violently. He had thought he was in control of the whole situation. Public opinion was on his side. Zhou Cheng was locked up, and he had sent people to intimidate the other parents. He just had to wait for the court hearing to send Zhou Cheng to prison and get $1 million in compensation. But he never imagined that woman, Liu, would dare to go directly to the school and force Zhang Jingguo to turn against him. He had underestimated this woman. He had thought she was just a weepy housewife, but she turned out to be a tough nut to crack. Brother Hong, calm down. He's just the principal of a lousy school. Not worth it, someone next to him advised. Not worth it. Zhao Hong shot him a venomous glare. What the hell do you know? Wang Li being suspended is an official admission of weakness by the school. How will outsiders see it? They'll think Wang Li is really the one with the problem. All the money I spent creating momentum is fucking wasted. He paced around the private room restlessly, like a caged beast. Threatening those poor parents was useless. Pressuring the school had now backfired. This path was a dead end, so he had to find a more ruthless one. He stopped, a vicious glint in his eyes. Li Wa. Yes, the problem was this woman. As long as he could break her, make her unable to even fend for herself, that so-called parent alliance would naturally fall apart. He picked up another phone and dialed a number. Hey, old Lou, help me look into someone. Her name is Li Yu, works at the Haiqing Design Institute. Yes, Zhou Cheng's wife. I want all her information. The more detail, the better. Also, help me schedule a dinner with Director Ma from your institute. Tell him Zhao Hong invites him. And I have a curtain wall engineering project worth tens of millions I want to discuss with him. Hanging up, Zhao Hong's cruel and confident sneer reappeared on his face. You want to fight me? You're still too green. Not only will I send your husband to prison, I'll make you lose your job and have your whole family starve. The next day, as soon as Li Yu arrived at the company, she was called into her department head's office. The supervisor looked grave, hesitating to speak. Li Yu has. Something happened with your family? Li Yu's heart sank. She knew what was coming had finally come. Yes, she didn't hide it. Director Ma wants to see you in his office. The supervisor sighed and patted her on the shoulder. Have a good attitude. The director has been in a bad mood lately. Li Yu walked into the director's office. Director Ma was a bald man in his 50s, currently looking down at a document. When he saw Li Yu come in, he didn't even lift his eyelids, just pointed to the chair opposite him. Seat. Li Yu sat down. The atmosphere in the office was suffocating. After a full 5 minutes, Director Ma finally put down the document, took off his reading glasses, and looked at Li Yu. Little Li, you've been at our institute for 5 or 6 years, haven't you? 6.5 years, Director Ma. Your professional skills are good, and you're a steady person. I was considering you for the senior engineer promotion this year. Director Ma's tone suddenly shifted, becoming severe. But the things you've been doing outside recently are of a truly vile nature. He slammed a newspaper down on the table. It was the very article that slandered Zhou Cheng. Look at this. Violent assault and public disturbance. The entire city of Haicheng now knows that an employee in our design institute has a violent maniac for a family member. Do you have any idea how much this has affected our institute's reputation? Last night, CEO Zhao from Hongta Group called me personally. He said our institute has a problem with its family values and that he needs to reconsider our partnership. Hongta Group, Zhao Hong. In that instant, Li Yu understood everything. Director Ma, her voice was cold. That report twists the truth. My husband had his reasons. Besides, this is my personal business and has nothing to do with my job. Nothing to do with it. Director Ma sounded as if he'd heard the funniest joke in the world. Li Iwa, you're too naive. Who do you think Zhao Hong is? He's the kingpin of the building materials industry in Haicheng. Half of our institute's projects rely on materials from him. If we offend him, this entire institute will have nothing to eat. Are you going to drag several hundred people down with you for your own family matter? He stood up, looking down at Li Yu. I'll give you a way out. First, immediately stop all your outside activities and disband that so-called parents' alliance. Second, go to the hospital and apologize to teacher Wang Li and issue a public statement to the media admitting your husband's actions were excessive. Third, accept all of CEO Zhao's compensation demands. If you can do these 3 things, I'll go and talk to CEO Zhao for you, and we'll pretend this business with your job never happened. He paused, his tone filled with an undeniable threat. If you can't, then don't blame me for being unreasonable. Write a resignation letter and submit it yourself. Don't make this ugly for everyone. This was the final ultimatum, using her career, her future, to force her into submission. Li Yu looked at the sanctimonious man before her and suddenly smiled. She stood up, straightened her clothes, her eyes betraying not a shred of fear or compromise, only icy resolve. Director Ma, you've gotten one thing wrong. I came to work at the Design Institute to sell my professional skills, not my character and dignity. If I lose my job, I can find another one. But if my daughter's justice and my husband's innocence are lost, I'll never get them back in this lifetime. I will not write a resignation letter. If you want to fire me, then compensate me according to the labor laws. Otherwise, I'll see you at the Labor Arbitration Committee. With that, she didn't spare another glance at Director Ma's face, now twisted with rage. She turned, pulled open the office door, and walked out without looking back. Stepping out of the Design Institute's main entrance, Li looked up at the sky. It was overcast, looking like it was about to rain. The threat of losing her job didn't fill her with fear. Instead, it ignited all the fighting spirit in her bones. If Zhao Hong thought this would make her yield, he was gravely mistaken. The more he resorted to such despicable tactics, the more it proved his own inner fear. Liu took out her phone, dialed Lawyer Chen's number, and briefly explained what had just happened. They finally couldn't sit still. Lawyer Chen's tone was as calm as ever. "This is a good thing. It means we've hit them where it hurts. Since they've brought the battle to the court of public opinion, then we'll give them a lesson they'll never forget. Right there in the court of public opinion." "What do you mean?" "We release all the evidence we have to the public." Lawyer Chen's voice was decisive. "Before, we were concerned about the impact and only gave it to the school. Now it seems you can't use gentlemanly methods to deal with hooligans. We're going to let the whole of society see what kind of people Wang Li and Zhao Hong really are." "Which media outlet should we find?" "Not traditional media." Lawyer Chen was clearly prepared. The process for traditional media is slow, and they're susceptible to public relations. We'll find a self-media public account that has the most influence locally and dares to speak out. I've already made contact. The editor-in-chief is a friend of mine, absolutely reliable. I need you to send me the electronic versions of all the materials right now, including Nuonyuo's photos, the hospital reports, and all the parent statements and recordings. Leave the rest to me. Liu immediately went home, opened her computer, and sorted all the blood and tears evidence she had collected over the past few days into categories, encrypted it, and then sent it to Lawyer Chen's email. She had named the folder Justice. That evening, a local public account with millions of followers, Haiqing Observer, published a long, in-depth article. The article's title was like a sharp knife, piercing straight to the heart. Beneath the halo of an outstanding teacher, the blood and tears of a dozen families behind the head-shaving incident at No. 1 Municipal Elementary. The article began without any sensational language. The very first accompanying image was a close-up of Nuonyuo's bald scalp, covered in red marks. The second picture was the one Nono drew of the crying, hairless little girl surrounded by countless sharp-toothed, gaping mouths. Just these two images were enough to instantly break the composure of any parent. Following that, the article, with an extremely detailed and objective tone, completely restored the entire sequence of events. From Zhou Cheng coming home from a business trip to find his daughter's head shaved, to Wang Li's dismissive response in a group chat, and then to Zhou Cheng's impulsive retaliation the next day. Then, with a turn of the pen, the article began to release the testimonies of those parents, one by one. Dowda's mother's son had the cartoon pattern on his down jacket cut to shreds with scissors by Wang Li. Attached were photos of the ruined jacket and the purchase receipt. Ding Ding's father's daughter, for answering a question too quietly, was forced to stand for a whole day, forbidden from eating or using the restroom. Attached were the hospital's medical records of the child's high fever that night. Leilei's mother, for bringing cherries for her child, had them thrown into the trash can in public by Wang Li, who insulted her for showing off wealth. Attached was a screenshot of the chat record where Wang Li singled her out for criticism in the group. There was also the parent who was hinted at to give a shopping gift card, who attached the record of a WeChat transfer to Wang Li with a note, "Thank you for your hard work, Teacher Wang." Statement after statement, recording after recording, screenshot after screenshot, like a series of heavy bombs, shattered Wang Li's halo of city-level outstanding teacher to pieces. The article also disclosed the incident of Zhao Hong sending people to threaten Dowdu's family's noodle restaurant. Although there was no surveillance footage, the author used indirect descriptions to convey the terror Dowdu's parents felt that night. Finally, the article directed its spearhead at Zhao Hong for paying for articles to reverse the narrative and for his despicable act of pressuring Li Yu's employer to force her resignation. The entire piece was well-reasoned, logically clear, and every accusation was supported by irrefutable evidence. The article concluded with a quote from Li Yu, "My husband's actions were wrong, and we accept the punishment of the law, but we will never bow to evil. If we back down an inch today, tomorrow there may be more children who fall into the hands of people like Wang Li. For our children, we have no retreat." This article was like a long-brewing volcano, erupting in an instant. In less than an hour after its release, it surpassed 100,000 views. In 2 hours, it flooded the entire internet. The comments section below the article completely exploded. Holy shit. I take back what I said about that dad. He's a fucking hero. That photo of the scalp and that drawing, I cried. What kind of terror and despair did a 7-year-old child go through? Cutting clothes, denying food, verbal abuse, soliciting bribes. That's not a teacher. That's a demon in human skin. This kind of person is not fit to be an educator. And that Zhao Hong, a typical gangster, threatening parents, buying articles, forcing someone to resign. Investigate. There must be a strict investigation. Let's see if his building materials company is clean. The reporter from that previous whitewashing article. Come out and take a beating. How much dirty money did you take? Doesn't your conscience hurt? In the face of ironclad facts, public opinion completed a stunning reversal. All previous accusations against Zhou Cheng turned into sympathy and support. And all the anger, like a tide, surged towards Wang Li and Zhao Hong. The tip-off hotline of the Haicheng City Education Bureau was ringing off the hook all night. Once the volcano of public opinion erupts, its power is something that people like Zhao Hong, who only know how to solve problems with money and violence, could never imagine. That in-depth report spread like a virus. It garnered huge attention not only in Haicheng, but even nationwide. Topics like hashtag the truth behind Haicheng head shaving gate hashtag and hashtag kick the demon out of the teaching profession hashtag shot to the top of the trending lists on major social media platforms. The provincial-level education supervision group entered Haicheng overnight. The Municipal Commission for Discipline Inspection also formed a joint investigation team, announcing a formal investigation into Wang Li for suspected serious violations of professional ethics and into Zhao Hong for suspected troublemaking, commercial bribery, and other issues. The tide had completely turned. Director Ma of the Haicheng Design Institute didn't sleep all night. Watching the overwhelming denunciations online, looking at the official announcement from the Education Bureau and the Commission for Discipline Inspection, he was scared out of his wits. He never would have imagined that, for the sake of a fictitious project worth tens of millions, he had almost tied himself to a sinking pirate ship. The next morning, he personally brewed a cup of the finest Longjing tea and brought it to Liu's desk. Little Li, no, Anjine, yesterday, I was muddle-headed. It was me who failed to recognize your importance. Rest assured, no one can touch your job. That spot for senior engineer, it's definitely yours this year. The Institute fully supports you in defending your rights. If you need anything, just ask. Director Ma bowed and scraped, his face plastered with a fawning smile. Liu didn't even glance at him, just calmly packed her things. Director Ma, that won't be necessary. This place disgusts me. She placed the last file into a cardboard box, and holding the box, walked straight out under the complicated gazes of her colleagues. She quit. She wasn't forced out. It was her own choice. She wanted to use this to tell everyone that her dignity would not be trampled upon. Meanwhile, at the Haicheng City Detention Center, Zhou Cheng's detention period was over. Originally, according to Zhao Hong's private prosecution case, the police might have applied for a formal arrest. But now, the situation was completely different. Wang Li, the victim, had herself become the subject of a formal investigation. Her harmful actions towards Nuonyuo, as well as her long history of misconduct, were deemed serious preceding faults. Zhou Cheng's actions, though excessive, had their societal harm reassessed in light of strong public opinion and the fact that there was a clear cause. The application for bail, pending trial submitted by Lawyer Chun, was approved smoothly. For in the afternoon, the heavy iron gate of the detention center creaked open. Zhou Cheng walked out. He had been inside for over 10 days. He was a bit thinner, a bit tanner, but his gaze was calmer and more resolute than before. At the gate, Liu stood quietly. No hacks, no tears. They stood a few steps apart, looked at each other, and smiled. Everything was understood without a word. They walked home side by side, the setting sun stretching their shadows long. I know everything. Zhou Cheng spoke first. What you did was 100 times better than what I did. We're husband and wife. Liu's voice was soft but firm. I have your back, and you have mine. We'll carry this family together. Back home, Nuonyuo was sitting on the carpet, playing with building blocks. Hearing the door open, she looked up. The moment she saw Zhou Cheng, she froze. A few seconds later, she dropped her blocks, her little legs scrambling as she flew like a little bird into Zhou Cheng's arms. "Daddy!" The cry, choked with sobs, made this man of iron's eyes instantly turn red. He held his daughter tightly, burying his face in the crook of her neck. Nuonyuo's hair had already grown out into a layer of fine fuzz. It was a little prickly to the touch, but it held the warmth of life. He smelled the familiar milky scent of his daughter. At that moment, he felt that everything he had done was worth it. The family of three held each other in a tight embrace. Outside the window, the dark clouds scattered, and a ray of golden sunlight pierced through, shining into the living room. Zhou Qing knew the fight wasn't completely over. Zhao Hong and Wang Li's private criminal prosecution hadn't been withdrawn. The lawsuit had to go on. But they had already won the most important battle. Justice may be delayed, but it will never be absent. As long as the family was together, there was no obstacle they couldn't overcome. Holding his daughter and looking at his wife, his heart was filled with an immense sense of peace. This family was his entire world, one he would protect with his life. The day the court summons arrived at our home, an autumn rain was falling over Haicheng. Liu and I stood side by side at the window, looking out at the gray, gloomy sky. The private criminal prosecution initiated by Zhao Hong and Wang Li was, after all, going to trial. "Are you afraid?" Liu asked me softly. I shook my head and took her hand. Her palm was warm and dry. "I'm not afraid," I said. "I just feel that what was bound to come has finally arrived." In these past few months, Liu's in my life had changed dramatically. I resigned from my old company and, with Lawyer Chen's help, handled all the formalities for my bail. Liu also resolutely left that design institute that disgusted her. Using her years of savings and connections, she and two like-minded friends opened her own design studio. Nuonyuo transferred to a new elementary school. The teachers and students at the new school were very friendly, and with our joint efforts and those of a psychologist, the smiles on her face gradually became more frequent. Her hair grew longer too. She got a playful short haircut and looked like a little pixie. As for Wang Li and Zhao Hong, they completely disappeared from the public eye. Wang Li was expelled from the school. Her teaching license was revoked, and the education system placed her on an industry blacklist, meaning she could never again be associated with the word teacher for the rest of her life. Zhao Hong's company, following a joint investigation by the disciplinary committee and the tax authorities, was found to have multiple issues, including tax evasion and commercial bribery. The company was seized, and he himself was saddled with enormous debts and lawsuits. They were like two drowned rats, utterly wretched. But they didn't withdraw the lawsuit. This private prosecution was their last and only lifeline. They deluded themselves into thinking that if they could just get me convicted in court, get me sent to prison, they could win back public opinion, paint themselves as the true victims to gain sympathy, and thereby lessen their own guilt. They were beautifully naive. The day before the trial, Lawyer Chen summoned us to his firm. "All the evidence is ready. Tomorrow, we will not only win, but we will win decisively." Lawyer Chen's eyes were filled with confidence. "Tomorrow will be a public hearing, and many media outlets will be present. This isn't just your case, Mr. Zhou. It's a public lesson on teacher ethics and basic decency that the entire society is watching." He looked at me. "Mr. Zhou, in court tomorrow, the opposing counsel will likely use all sorts of words to attack you, to make you lose your composure. You must remember, no matter what they say, do not get angry. Stay calm. Leave everything to me." I nodded. "I understand." On the day of the trial, the weather was clear. Liu and I walked into the courthouse, hand in hand. The entrance was swarmed with reporters. Flashbulbs went off before us like a sea of stars. We didn't shy away, walking calmly through the crowd. In a corner of the crowd, I saw Dodo's mother, Ding Ding's father, and several other parents. They didn't speak, but from a distance, they looked at us and clenched their fists in a gesture of support. A warmth spread through my heart. Inside the courtroom, the gallery was packed. Liu and I sat at the defendant's table. A few minutes later, Zhao Hong and Wang Li entered and took their seats at the plaintiff's table. Zhao Hong looked much more haggard, his hair graying, his eyes sinister, like a dying wolf. Wang Li had her head wrapped tightly in a thick scarf and wore a pair of huge sunglasses that covered half her face. As she walked in, Her body trembled, and she dared not meet anyone's gaze in the gallery. The gavel fell, and the trial began. The lawyer Zhao Hong had hired was a shrewd-looking middle-aged man. The moment he began, he started to state the case in a highly inflammatory tone. He painted me as an extreme violent individual who plotted revenge out of dissatisfaction with a teacher's normal teaching methods, and described Wang Li as a conscientious and beloved teacher who suffered a terrible and undeserved humiliation. He glossed over the incident of Wang Li shaving Nuo Yuo's head, calling it a well-intentioned, though slightly inappropriate, reminder, while describing my act of shaving Wang Li's head in public as a barbaric, premeditated public execution. My client, Ms. Wang Li, has suffered immense and irreversible physical and psychological trauma. She wakes up from nightmares every day, is afraid to go out, afraid to see people. And the perpetrator of all this is Zhou Cheng, who sits in the defendant's chair. We request the court to sentence the defendant, Zhou Cheng, to 3 years in prison for intentional injury. And we demand that he compensate my client 1 million yuan for emotional distress. The lawyer's voice echoed through the courtroom. A smug, cold smile appeared on Zhao Hong's face. Wang Li, playing her part, began to let out suppressed sobs. I sat at the defendant's table, my face expressionless, but inside, I found it all incredibly laughable. They could really call black white. I turned my head to glance at Lawyer Chun. He was perfectly composed, a faint, almost mocking smile playing on his lips. He waited until the opposing lawyer had finished before slowly rising to his feet and adjusting his tie. Your Honor, I object to everything the plaintiff's counsel has just said. His voice was clear and powerful, instantly capturing the attention of the entire room. Because his statement is not only filled with lies and distortions, but it is also the most shameless desecration of the word victim. Now, allow me to show everyone who the real victim is, and what kind of well-intentioned reminder could leave such shocking scars on a 7-year-old girl's scalp. With that, he pressed a button on the remote in his hand. The large screen in the center of the courtroom lit up. A close-up photograph of Nuo Yuo's scalp, covered in red marks and even streaks of blood, appeared before everyone without warning. The entire courtroom instantly fell into a dead silence. It was followed by a wave of sharp, indrawn breaths. The photo, magnified several times, struck everyone's heart like a silent, heavy hammer. The impact of the image was far more direct, more brutal than any words could be. In the gallery, a young female reporter couldn't even hold back a short gasp, quickly covering her mouth with her hand. At the plaintiff's table, Wang Li's body jolted violently, as if her eyes had been stabbed by the photograph. The smug look on Zhao Hong's face froze in an instant, replaced by an incredibly ugly expression. Your Honor, members of the jury, please look at the large screen. Lawyer Chen's voice was as calm as a scalpel. This photo was taken the night before the incident. On it is the head of the defendant Zhou Cheng's 7-year-old daughter, Zhou Nuo. What the plaintiff's lawyer called a well-intentioned but slightly inappropriate reminder was to shave a child's head completely, leaving more than a dozen scars of varying depths on her scalp. The hospital's diagnostic report shows that these injuries were all caused by violent external force. Lawyer Chun pressed the remote again. On the screen, the drawing Nuo Yuo had made appeared. It was a little girl with no hair, crying, surrounded by countless sharp-toothed, gaping mouths. This is a drawing the child psychologist had Nuo Yuo make after the incident. The evaluation report indicates that Nuo Yuo developed severe post-traumatic stress disorder, including insomnia, nightmares, and social phobia. A child who was once lively and cheerful became afraid to see people, afraid to go to school. I would like to ask the plaintiff, Ms. Wang Li, is this also the result of your good intentions? Wang Li's body trembled more violently. She buried her head low, not daring to look at anyone. Lawyer Chen's gaze turned to her, becoming incredibly sharp. Now, I request to call the witness, Daodu's mother, Ms. Zhang, to the stand. Daodu's mother stood up from the gallery and walked to the witness stand. She seemed a little nervous, but her eyes were firm. Ms. Zhang, please tell the court, did your child also suffer from teacher Wang Li's well-intentioned reminders? Yes. Daodu's mother's voice trembled with agitation. Last winter, just because my son's down jacket had a small Ultraman pattern on it, Wang Li, in front of the whole class, used a pair of scissors to cut the brand new jacket to shreds. She said my son was dressed too flamboyantly, and it was a bad influence on the class. When I went to confront her afterward, she even said my son had accidentally torn it himself and criticized my son for lying. Do you have evidence? Yes. This is a photo of the ruined down jacket. On the big screen, a photo of a child's down jacket appeared. Across the chest, a long, ugly gash had been cut. A wave of suppressed, angry muttering filled the courtroom. I request to call the witness, Dingding's father, Mr. Li. Dingding's father walked to the stand. He was a tall man, but his eyes were red-rimmed now. My daughter, just because her voice was a little quiet when answering a question in class, Wang Li made her stand next to the trash can at the back of the classroom for the entire day. No food, no bathroom breaks. The child came home with a high fever, developed acute gastroenteritis, and was hospitalized for a week. I request to call the witness. One after another, parents walked to the witness stand. One by one, the evil deeds that had been covered up were brought to light. Torn clothes, discarded fruit, criticisms laced with insulting language, chat logs hinting at demands for red envelopes. All the evidence formed a complete and solid chain, tearing Wang Li's disguise as an outstanding teacher to shreds. The atmosphere in the court had shifted from my trial to a public denunciation of Wang Li. The color of Zhao Hong's face went from ashen to deathly pale. He kept trying to signal his lawyer, but the lawyer was sweating profusely, completely powerless to turn the tide. Finally, Lawyer Chen's gaze locked onto Wang Li once more. Ms. Wang Li, you keep saying you're the victim. Then, when these children had their clothes cut by your scissors, were punished by being denied food, and were publicly humiliated by you, what were they? Wang Li snapped her head up, her eyes behind the sunglasses filled with venomous hatred. I didn't. They're all lying. They conspired to frame me. It was that bitch Liu who paid them off. Her voice suddenly became shrill and piercing, like the shriek of a cornered animal. Frame you, Lawyer Chen sneered, holding up a document. This is the official red-stamped document just issued by the Municipal Education Bureau, revoking your municipal outstanding teacher title and suspending your teaching license. Is the Education Bureau framing you too? This document was the last straw. Wang Li stared at the document as if it were her own death sentence. All her pretenses, all her defenses, completely crumbled in that moment. She let out a blood-curdling scream, shot up from her chair, and pointed at me, at the parents in the gallery, looking utterly insane. It was you. You all ruined me. I did nothing wrong. Everything I did was for their own good. Disobedient students must be disciplined. It's all of you troublemakers. It's that madman, Zhou Cheng. He ruined my life. I want you dead. I want you to die a horrible death. She cursed hysterically, like a true madwoman. The bailiffs immediately stepped forward and restrained her. Zhao Hong rushed up, trying to hold her, but she shoved him away. Get lost. You useless piece of trash. Didn't you say you could handle everything? Didn't you say you could get him sent to jail? And now, my job is gone. My reputation is ruined. It's all because you're useless. An utterly ugly farce unfolded in the courtroom. The presiding judge slammed the gavel. Silence. Silence. Remove the plaintiff from the court. Wang Li was forcibly dragged out by two bailiffs, still sputtering incoherent curses. The entire courtroom fell silent. Everyone watched the end of this farce with a mixture of contempt and shock. Lawyer Chun turned, faced the bench, and bowed slightly. Your Honor, my cross-examination is complete. On the day the verdict was announced, the sun shone brightly. Liu, myself, and all the parents who had helped us were sitting in the gallery. The plaintiff's seat was empty. Wang Li had been sent to a psychiatric hospital due to her unstable mental state. Zhao Hong, on the other hand, had been formally arrested because his company was suspected of multiple economic crimes. At this moment, he was likely in another place, awaiting his own trial. The lawsuit they had initiated ended in nothing but an absurd conclusion. The presiding judge picked up the judgment and, in a voice devoid of any emotion, yet perfectly clear, read out the final verdict. After trial, this court has found that the plaintiff, Wong Li bears significant prior fault for the violent act of forcibly cutting the hair of the defendant Zhou Cheng's daughter, Zhou Nuonyuo. Her actions seriously violated the teacher's law and the law on the protection of minors, causing a severe negative social impact. The defendant Zhou Cheng's retaliatory actions, though in violation of the Public Security Administration Punishments Law, were understandable, provoked, and did not result in serious physical injury. The verdict is as follows. All claims made by the private prosecutors Wang Li and Zhao Hong against the defendant Zhou Cheng are dismissed. The defendant Zhou Cheng's actions do not constitute the crime of intentional injury. His excessive actions will be separately addressed with an administrative fine by the public security organs. The judgment is delivered. The court is adjourned. The gavel fell with a crisp sound. I let out a long sigh of relief, feeling as if the huge boulder that had been weighing on my heart for months had finally been removed. Liu squeezed my hand tightly, her eyes red. In the gallery, Dodo's mom and the others all stood up, giving us genuine smiles, and then broke into a storm of applause. This applause was not for me, but for all who do not bow to evil, for justice, though delayed. Walking out of the courthouse, the sunlight felt warm on my skin. The reporters swarmed us again, but this time, their microphones and cameras were filled with goodwill. "Mr. Zhou, do you have anything to say about the verdict?" I looked at the cameras, thought for a long time, then took Liu's hand and bowed deeply to everyone. "Thank you all. I only have one thing to say. Don't be afraid. When your child is harmed, you must stand up bravely, because you are not just protecting your own child, but everyone's children." After speaking, we didn't linger and left the scene under Lawyer Chen's escort. Life finally returned to the peace it was supposed to have. 6 months later, Liu's design studio had made a name for itself in the industry after taking on several major projects. She no longer had to answer to anyone, earning respect and a career with her own talent and hard work. I also found a new job as a technical director at a local equipment company. The work was stable, close to home, and I no longer needed to travel for long periods. I could come home every day, have dinner with Nuonyuo, and tell her bedtime stories. The parents who had helped us became the best friends in our lives. We would often get together. The children would chase each other and play, while the adults raised their glasses, reminiscing about the times we fought side by side. As for Zhao Hong, his company went into bankruptcy liquidation. He himself was sentenced to 10 years in prison for multiple crimes. Wang Li remained in the psychiatric hospital for treatment and never came out. They were like two pieces of trash washed up on the beach, completely carried away by the tides of life. One weekend afternoon, I took Liu and Nuonyuo to the park to fly a kite. Nuonyuo's hair had grown to her shoulders, tied in 2 cute little pigtails that swung in the sunlight as she ran. She held the kite, laughing and running on the grass like a happy butterfly. Liu and I sat on the grass, watching her. "Look, it seems like she's already forgotten about those things," Liu said softly, leaning on my shoulder. "She hasn't forgotten." I shook my head and wrapped my arm around her waist. She just hid those bad memories away. Then, with our love and her own strength, she grew a new flower on top of them. The kite flew very, very high. Nuonyuo turned back, waving vigorously at us, the smile on her face brighter than the sun in the sky. I looked at her, then at Liu beside me. Suddenly, I felt that life is sometimes like this kite. It will always encounter times with no wind, or even be battered by storms. But as long as the line in your hand is strong enough, as long as you have someone beside you holding it with you, then one day it will fly again towards the vast, clear sky that belongs to it. Time is the best medicine. In the blink of an eye, a year had passed since that storm. A lot had happened in Haicheng this year. But for our small family, life was as calm as a clear lake. Liu's studio was on the right track. Her talent and resilience had allowed her to carve out a path for herself in the male-dominated world of architectural design. She was no longer the little Li who had to be mindful of the director's moods, but the respected engineer Li. I had also completely said goodbye to the days of constant business trips. At my new company, I devoted more of my energy to my family. Picking Nuonyuo up from school, helping her with homework, telling her stories, these daily routines that I had missed out on before had now become the most precious treasures in my life. Nuonyuo was the biggest change in our family. She had completely walked out of the shadows, becoming more cheerful and confident than before. Her hair had grown long, and Liu would tie it in a pretty ponytail. When she ran, she looked like a leaping ball of sunshine. At her new school, she made many new friends, and her grades were among the best. Occasionally, she would casually mention that old school, but there was no longer fear in her tone. It was more like she was telling someone else's story. I knew the scar was still there, but it no longer hurt. Instead, it had become a hard, shining metal. This day was Noonyuo's 8th birthday. We didn't invite many guests, just simply made a table full of her favorite dishes at home. After blowing out the candles, Noonyuo wrapped her arms around my neck and gave me a kiss on the cheek. "Daddy, thank you." "Silly girl. No need to be so polite with your dad." I smiled and tapped her nose. "No." She shook her head, her expression as serious as a little adult's. "I mean, thank you for letting me know that when I'm bullied, someone will be there to protect me like a Superman." In that instant, my heart was filled with an immense sense of happiness. Liu watched us from the side, her eyes a little moist. Just then, the doorbell rang. I opened the door and saw Lawyer Chen standing there with a fruit basket, a gentle smile on his face. "Uncle Chun." Noonyuo happily rushed over to him. "Happy birthday, little birthday girl." Lawyer Chun smiled, handed the fruit basket to me, and then swept Noonyuo up into his arms. Over the past year, our relationship with Lawyer Chun had transformed from a professional one to a good friendship. "Lawyer Chun, what brings you here today?" Liu poured him a cup of tea. "I was passing by and thought I'd come up to see you all." Lawyer Chun put Noonyuo down and sat on the sofa. "Mainly, I wanted to share some good news with you." He took several newspapers out of his briefcase and spread them out in front of us. "Remember your case? It now has an official name, the Haiqing 912 Shaving Headgate Incident." He pointed to the front page headline of one of the newspapers. The headline read, "Learning from the Shaving Headgate, our city implements the strictest ever teacher ethics red line management measures." Your case was like a bomb that blew away the fig leaf covering the education sector. There was a hint of emotion in Lawyer Chen's voice. This past year, the province and the city launched a joint operation and dismissed hundreds of unqualified teachers like Wang Li. Furthermore, they've used your experience as a blueprint to issue new regulations. Now, any teacher who dares to use corporal punishment or verbal abuse on a student will, once verified, have their teaching license revoked immediately and be banned for life. The school principal will also bear joint responsibility. He then took out another newspaper. In this, the city has established a minors' rights protection center specifically to provide legal aid and psychological counseling for children and parents who suffer unfair treatment at school but are afraid to speak out. It said that the establishment of this center was personally approved by the municipal party secretary after he reviewed your case file. Lawyer Chen looked at me and Liu, his eyes filled with respect. "Look, your persistence and courage back then not only won justice for Noonyuo, but also indirectly protected thousands upon thousands of children like her. What you changed was not just your own fate, but the rules of a city." Liu and I looked at each other, and in each other's eyes, we saw an indescribable shock. We had never imagined that a father's instinctive revenge, a mother's struggle for her family, would ultimately have such a profound societal impact. It turned out that our seemingly insignificant battle had, unintentionally, pushed society forward just a little bit. In that moment, all the grievances, all the hardships, vanished into thin air. An unprecedented, profound sense of value welled up in my heart. "Zhou Xin, Li Wa." Lawyer Chen stood up and said to us solemnly, "I have handled many cases and met many clients, but you two are the ones I admire the most. Thank you for letting me see the most dazzling light that an ordinary family can burst forth with when facing injustice." By the time we saw Lawyer Chen out, the night was already deep. Noonyuo was long asleep, a sweet smile still on her face. Liu and I stood on the balcony, watching the myriad lights of the city outside the window. "Zhou Cheng," Liu leaned against my shoulder. "Have you ever regretted it? We almost lost everything. Our family was nearly torn apart because of this." I shook my head and held her tighter. Before, I felt that everything I did was just for Noonyuo, but now I don't think so anymore. I looked at the brilliant lights in the distance and said softly, If our suffering could prevent even one child in this city from experiencing the same harm as Nuonuo, then everything we did was worth it. Lee didn't speak, just pressed her head more tightly against my shoulder. The night breeze was slightly cool, but our hearts were incredibly warm. Nuonuo's new school had a tradition of holding a campus storytelling event every spring. It wasn't just a speech competition, but a stage for the school to encourage children to express themselves and share their growth. This year's theme was A Hero Around Me. When Nuonuo came running to me excitedly with the registration form, saying she wanted to participate, both Li Yu's and my hearts skipped a beat. Of course, we supported her participating in any activity, but this theme was too sensitive. We were afraid she would reopen that scar, afraid she would be hurt again by recounting that experience. Nuonuo, this theme. What story do you want to tell? Li Yu asked tentatively, her tone filled with caution. Nuonuo tilted her head, her big eyes blinking. It's a secret. She stuck out her tongue playfully. Dad, Mom, just wait for my amazing performance. Seeing her confident and mischievous look, we swallowed all our worries. We chose to trust her, to believe that our daughter already possessed a heart strong enough to face her own past. For the next week, Nuonuo became very busy. Every day after school, she would slip into her little room, hunched over her desk, writing and drawing. Several times we tried to sneak a peek at what she was writing, but she always mysteriously blocked us. On the day of the storytelling event, the school auditorium was filled with students and parents. Li Yu and I sat in the last row of the audience, our palms sweating with nervousness. When the host announced Grade 2, Class 3, Zhou Nuonuo, our hearts leaped into our throats. Nuonuo, wearing a pure white princess dress and a high ponytail, walked onto the stage with steady steps. Under the spotlight, her small figure appeared so upright, so confident. She walked to the center of the stage, bowed deeply to the audience, and then picked up the microphone. The entire hall fell silent. Hello, everyone. I'm Zhou Nuonuo. Today, the story I want to share with you is called My Dad is a Superman. Hearing this title, my eyes instantly grew hot. Many people think that heroes are the Supermen in movies. They can fly, breathe fire, defeat monsters, and save the world. But my hero can't fly. He's just an ordinary engineer. He is my dad. Nuonuo's voice, through the microphone, echoed clearly in every corner of the auditorium. When I was very little, my dad often traveled for work, sometimes for half a month at a time. I always looked forward to his return because he would bring me lots of delicious and fun things. But there was one thing more important than these gifts. She paused, her gaze sweeping over the audience, and finally, it landed precisely on Li Yu and me. She looked at us and gave a brilliant smile. One year, I fell very ill. It wasn't a cold or a fever, but an illness of the heart. I stopped wanting to talk, to laugh. I was afraid to go outside, afraid to see people. I shut myself in my small room, and it felt like the whole world had turned black and white. Hearing this, Li Yu couldn't hold back any longer. She gripped my hand tightly, her nails digging deep into my flesh. I could feel her body trembling slightly. I squeezed her hand back, giving her strength. But Nuonuo on the stage, her eyes were exceptionally clear and calm. Just when I was most scared and desperate, my dad, my Superman, came back. He didn't lecture me with grand principles. He just knelt down, stroked my head, and told me, Nuonuo, don't be afraid. Daddy will get justice for you. And later, he really did it. With his actions, he drove away the big monster that bullied me. He made me understand that when darkness comes, we can't be afraid, we can't hide and cry. We have to stand up bravely and fight it, because as long as we are brave enough, the light will surely come. My dad is not a Superman from the movies. He doesn't save the world, but with his shoulders, he held up a clear sky for me. He taught me what love is, what responsibility is, and what uncompromising courage is. He is my hero, the one and only, the most powerful Superman in my heart. My story is finished. Thank you, everyone. After speaking, she bowed deeply again. The auditorium was silent for a full 3 seconds. Then, thunderous applause erupted from all directions, unending. Many parents were quietly wiping away tears. I looked at the small figure on the stage, at the confident and composed smile on her face, and I knew that my daughter had completely recovered. She didn't avoid that painful past, but chose to face it bravely, to examine it, and finally, to turn it into a part of her growth, into a shining medal of courage. That day, Noonyuo's speech won first prize. On the way home, she hugged the gleaming gold trophy, jumping and skipping with joy. Liu and I followed behind her, watching her joyful figure, our hearts filled with immense peace. After dinner, Noonyuo took the trophy and solemnly placed it in the display cabinet in the living room, next to the engineering medals I had won back in the day. Dad, from now on, we're comrades in arms. She patted my shoulder, acting like a little adult. From now on, we'll protect Mom and our home together. I laughed, picked her up, and gave her a big kiss on the cheek. All right, together. At that moment, the gentle moonlight streamed through the window, illuminating the happy faces of our family of three. I suddenly understood that a true hero is perhaps not defined by how many enemies they defeat, but by how much beauty they protect. And my whole world was right here in my arms. After the storytelling event, Noonyuo's life completely turned a new page. She became more confident, stronger, as if she had grown up overnight. That experience which once trapped her in a mire had now, surprisingly, become her most precious treasure. Liu and I could also finally let go of the last weight in our hearts and begin to plan our future with all our being. Liu's studio grew larger and larger. Her design philosophy, which blended feminine delicacy with an engineer's rigor, was unique in the industry. She began to receive invitations for landmark building projects, and her days were busy and fulfilling, her eyes shining with an unprecedented light. As for me, I built up an excellent technical team at the new company. I dedicated more of my time to being with my family. Every weekend, our family of three would go camping in the suburbs, watch the sunrise by the sea, and explore every interesting corner of the city. Those simple and warm daily moments, like a gentle stream, slowly smoothed out all the wrinkles left by time. It was spring again, and our family went on vacation to the seaside. Noonyuo's hair had grown to her waist, dark and glossy. When the sea breeze blew, it fluttered like black satin. She was wearing a floral dress, barefoot, chasing the waves on the beach, her laughter like silver bells, carrying far into the distance. Liu and I sat side by side on the sand, watching her. This must be what they mean by the years are quiet and good. Zhou Cheng, sometimes I wonder what would our lives be like if that incident had never happened, Liu suddenly said softly. I thought for a moment and shook my head. I don't know. Maybe you'd still be at the Design Institute, swallowing your pride for a senior engineer position. Maybe I'd still be flying all over the country, not home for 300 days a year. We might have more money, but we definitely wouldn't be as happy as we are now. Liu smiled, resting her head on my shoulder. Yeah, life is really strange sometimes. It deals you the heaviest blows, but it also makes you see what's most important. We fell silent, watching the sea and sky merge in the distance. After a while, Noonyuo ran back, holding a few colorful seashells, presenting them to us as if they were treasures. Daddy, Mommy, look at the shells I found. Aren't they pretty? They're beautiful, I said, smiling and stroking her head. She suddenly looked at me, a hint of slyness in her eyes. Daddy, I want to get a haircut. My heart instinctively tightened. Liu also looked at her nervously. Why? Doesn't long hair look nice? Noonyuo pouted, thinking for a moment. Long hair is pretty, but it's so much trouble to wash. Besides, I want a cooler hairstyle. As she spoke, she gestured with her hands, the kind that's really short up to my ears, the kind that looks really sharp. Seeing the look of anticipation on her face, Liu and I exchanged a glance, and we both saw a trace of relief and comfort in each other's eyes. I knew that her wanting to cut her hair this time had absolutely nothing to do with that passive, humiliating experience. This was purely her own choice. It was a little girl's first independent decision about her own body and image. Okay, I smiled and pinched her cheek. As long as it's what you like, Daddy will support you. We'll go tomorrow, find the best hairdresser in the whole city, and get you the coolest haircut. Yay! Long live Daddy! Noonyuo jumped for joy. The next day, we took Noonyuo into a very stylishly decorated hair salon. The chief stylist was a handsome young man. He knelt on one knee in front of Nuonuo, as if she were a little princess, and gently asked her what kind of hairstyle she wanted. Nuonuo wasn't shy at all and boldly stated her ideas. The scissors danced in the stylist's hands, and strands of long, black hair gently drifted to the floor. I watched Nuonuo in the mirror, watching her long hair get shorter and shorter, and I didn't feel a trace of sadness. Instead, there was an indescribable feeling of lightness and joy. I knew that from this moment on, the nightmare associated with her hair was completely cut off, completely buried. Half an hour later, a brand new Nuonuo appeared before us. A chic and neat short haircut made her big eyes seem even brighter. She looked valiant and spirited, like a confident little knight. "Wow, I love it!" Nuonuo exclaimed in pleasant surprise, looking at herself in a mirror. She turned around and gave me a big hug. "Thank you, Daddy." On the way home, the setting sun painted the sky a warm orange-red. Nuonuo sat in the back seat, humming a tuneless song. The wind from the window blew through her new short hair. She was like a small tree, facing the wind, growing towards the sun. Liu squeezed my hand and said softly, "This is nice. It's all over." I nodded, my gaze fixed on the golden road ahead. "No," I said with a smile. "It's not over. We walked through it. Yes, we walked through it. With love, with courage, and with uncompromising perseverance. We walked through that darkest, thorn-filled path. And ahead, there is sunshine, a smooth road, and the most stable and brilliant, happy future that belongs to our family of 3.